Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is the Paddock Podcast and we've got a lot to get through today. Basically, we're asking the question, do Ineos know what they're doing? Because we've seen some decisions in the last few weeks culminating in poor results on the field and then this baffling move to get rid of Dan Ashworth off the field. And I think it's worth asking the question. We've had we're pushing almost a year now. I think it was the 24th of December that the deal was agreed. It wasn't pushed through until a couple months after, of Ineos and the new ownership. Do they know what they're doing? So we're going to go through that, look at the things they've done, the good, the bad, and the just flat out ridiculous, and decide if so far we've actually seen a good set of owners. Jay's here, how are you?
Yeah, I'm alright, man. I'm over the Forest game already. That's
what game?
That exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm done with that. I was done with that at about 7:30 on Saturday night, to be honest with you.
I was done with that about 75 minutes in.
Yeah, I think the United team were as well, to be fair.
I was only done with it after a few glasses of Baileys.
Yeah.
A couple hours after.
On the Baileys?
It's Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah, Christmassy, and I thought it's actually one of those. I said I need to drink something that's going to sneak up on me.
I like that.
And I thought, I'll drink a Baileys. Because that's what Support United does to you at the moment.
You made me laugh running one of your tweets. I was going to retweet, then I thought people might get it take it the wrong way coming from me.
Oh, relapse city.
Yeah, it just drives you to alcoholism, I think you'd put.
Yeah.
We've got a bit of breaking news, if you forgive me, for jumping on your parade there, Joseph, if you are.
Yeah, David Coote has been sacked with immediate effect as a Premier League ref. I think, no offence, we could all see that coming, couldn't we? I just think it's a bit of a sad situation he's found himself in there. And do you know what?
It was, but
I was with someone over the weekend who's met him a few times, who kind of knows him, knows the guy who filmed him, do you know the original Klopp video?
Yeah.
And said, from their opinion of him, obviously...
Is this guy you?
No, it's not me, because
that's usually the line people say.
He doesn't know him well, but he's been on multiple nights out with him. He's got a lot of friends in common, and said that for everything he knew of him, was that he was a decent guy, and he's obviously made a big mistake. But it's the whole situation. I just feel a little bit sad. Some of the things he said were crossing the line, obviously, but I just think you're filming someone in that state. And being filmed in that state is just an absolute no-go. If that's one of my mates or that's me, I'm furious that was ever filmed and that it was ever shared.
I reckon it was one of them where they brought him in and said, we're going to fire you, we're going to sack you. You don't really want to, but we kind of have to.
Yeah.
It was probably something like that, because it couldn't have been a worse fan base for him to piss off, though, than Liverpool fans. It's like they're literally peak cancel culture. So it's one of those where... It was always probably going to result in something like this, but they can't deal with the fact that in future games, anything that he refs is going to be under more of a microscope, and whether he might affect certain games, and then it's obvious that he has some sort of bias against Liverpool. Yeah. So I think it was a decision that was always going to happen.
I agree with Ronnie, and I think that it undermines everything, doesn't it? I feel for him, and I know this sounds a little bit weird thing to say, but I always wonder if someone's taking drugs like that on camera as well, because I think he was filmed sniffing white powder, and we can all put two and two together on that front. And you're being filmed, but you're doing it anyway. You're saying these things when you're out your head. I feel like if he has got an issue with substance abuse or drugs or whatever, I do feel sorry for him, myself. But it had become untenable. And as soon as that video dropped of him saying, calling Klopp what he called him, you knew he was done. There's no way he was going to set foot in the Premier League again and referee. It was obvious that wasn't going to happen, and I think it is a shame. And I'm not into grassing on people or sharing things and stuff like that, but he has been massively naive, in letting himself be filmed in the first place, because no good could ever come of that.
No.
And yes, it's unfortunate that it's cost him his refereeing career, but it's a proper schoolboy error. Allowing yourself to be filmed, I'd be like, not a chance.
Because everyone's been bladdered and in a position where someone could film you.
Yeah.
But if you're coherent and you're being able to speak, you should know on a fundamental level. I don't say these things, and I certainly don't say it to a camera. Like he's obviously maybe a bit pissed or whatever is going on, but you're not so pissed that you think being filmed saying that is a good idea, because the next video is don't send that to anyone. So immediately there was a reluctance there. But
he must have been refereeing always knowing that could come back to bite him, because there was, what is it, a 4-year gap between
like that.
between
Is
that
that what it
video.
was?
No one knows exactly when it was.
Right,
Do
I
they?
knew it was obviously.
People are saying it was around
retired now, but
Around COVID.
not
COVID.
retired, you know, he's not in the Premier League. But I didn't realise. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
when we started.
So at some point he probably thought he got away that he was in the clear, but
Yeah.
these things always have a way of resurfacing. innit?
Shame, really.
Shame.
This is why you got to be careful, man. This is why I tell you whenever I'm out drinking, don't film me.
No, we
People
don't.
think I'm sober.
Yeah, but last thing we'd want to do is ruin the surprise. Let's talk about Ineos a little bit then. Let's just start with this, and we'll get into the specific details of this case with Dan Ashworth, what we've seen with some of the other stuff as well. But just generally at the minute, the vibe around Ineos isn't particularly warm and sort of that giddy new owner feeling that we had about 11 months ago, is it?
No, it isn't. And listen, they had a big advantage in Ineos when they came in, the fact that everyone hated the Glazers and hates the Glazers.
Yeah.
So you're coming in, and just by doing a few, I said this at the time, they did a few obvious things that were very easy to do, but the Glazers didn't do them. So, for example, meeting the fans forum, face to face, having that chat with them, doesn't do a lot. You don't even have to promise anything. You don't even have to do anything. But just having a conversation is something that Joel and Avram never did, other than, I think, via 2 Skype calls after we basically got a game postponed. Going to the Munich Memorial, Jim Ratcliffe went to that, to at Old Trafford. I don't mean the one in Munich. I mean at Old Trafford, the remembrance on the 6th of Feb. Like, that was another one where it's like, okay, it's a bit of a tap-in, and yes, that's something you should be doing, but the Glazers were never there, were they? So, again, you can argue, well, it's not the end of the world, but it's not the most amazing thing, but these are simple things, easy things to do, easy wins to get the fans going, looking at going, okay, you're doing things differently already, that the Glazers never did. Then you start appointing people. Mabrada comes in from City, that announcement, and it's like, okay, good, that makes sense to me. I'd never heard of him before, but when I looked at him, it looked like it made sense. We're linked with Dan Ashworth, bringing Jason Wilcox. It all feels like these are moves that, make a lot of sense. The Glazers weren't doing. We're getting football people in. You've got that connection with the fans. You seem to be saying the right things and doing the right things on that front. Even Ratcliffe's statements were quite... Not like he had a massive amount of knowledge around the football club, but you could see he knew a bit more than the Glazers when he was talking about best and Cantona and glamour and bringing it back to that sort of thing. Okay, I like all this. But then they've had to start making some tough decisions. And they've made some that you can understand and others that just seem a little bit like almost counterproductive. So little things like the laying off staff.
Well, let's start with that then. Let's go through that, because we spoke about that a lot at the time, didn't we? Laying off staff. And some of it, I think, if you just for a second, take away the human element of it, which I'm not going to stick to doing, because I think you have to consider the human element, because these are people. There's a case to be made that United had become a little bit bloated in terms of numbers.
That was a statement. It was a reporter. Sorry, I think that we'd seen that United had, was it more staff than anyone else?
Yeah, I think, and by the tune of roughly about 150
in the
to
Premier
200.
League. Sorry,
Like, I think a lot of teams were floating around that 1,000 staff mark, and ours was, I think, sort of 1,200 odd. So the idea of taking that down to 1,000, if those things that you're looking at aren't people, you go, yeah, it makes sense, but they are people. And they are people who are losing their income, and a lot of those people, as is quite sort of well known, United aren't necessarily the best in terms of salary, but a lot of those people are United fans who their dream is to do their job for Manchester United. So there's an extra element of sadness to it when you look at that as well, which isn't good.
But if you're looking at it from an Ineos perspective, are a lot of the tough decisions they've got to make like that from a human level as a result of the Glazer tenure, though.
Yeah, and that's something that
the debt that's being created and the financial issues that Ineos have to almost come in and make tough decisions to clear up. And obviously it might make them, in the eyes of the public, not very popular, but some of it might be necessary, but some of it might seem like they've gone a little bit overboard. But the issue is they've got insight that we don't have.
Yeah.
Obviously they should be the experts and we aren't. But it's just one of them. I think we've got to keep a close eye on them because we don't want to crown them too early. I think a lot of people did say that. People thought it was the better of the two in terms of the Qatar and Ineos debate. But I think the proof will eventually be in the pudding and sees what actually occurs and whether they make changes. But it's not like an easy situation that they've come into because the Glazers have left the club in a little bit of a mess.
Yeah, no, that's something I want to get to as well when we get to the ticket prices. Let's talk about the ticket prices because there's a few other things as well that we've been over a lot more on the channel because they've been around for a lot longer. So the temporary facilities for the women's team that were kind of as a result of the men's team sort of using the women's new facilities, so they've kind of been pushed around and moved around. I don't know exactly where that's up to now, but I remember at the time that caused a bit of controversy. Also, the stuff of paying staff to be sacked and then to be bringing in the new people as well. Obviously, what we've seen with getting Dan Ashworth in cost around 2 or 3 million quid. He's now being sacked. I don't know how much that'll cost us. That's not really been reported yet, but it's not going to be free to get rid of him and or bring in someone new. So in terms of, let's just look at it. Let's move on to the tickets then, Jay. That's something that we've spoke about a lot on the channel already in recent weeks. But again, it's another thing where you go, they're looking at this purely from a business perspective. And is there a case to be made potentially that they would look at it, Ineos would say, over the last 10 to 15 years, because of the fact that the Glazers just don't really care about anything, let alone, I mean, all they care about is their dividend, but they don't really look at running United all the time, that the ticket price of United had been almost too kind of, I don't know what the right word is, not friendly, but they've almost been lower than they could have been. Like the Glazers have taken a sort of such a hands-off approach where they go, yeah, you can freeze the ticket prices again and again. Would Ineos say they should have cost more than they did? They should have gone up more in the last 10 years than they have. So now we have to take a big jump. Or do you think it's just, you can't accept it one way or the other?
I understand that was kind of what the Glazers sort of used to hang the hat on, though, wasn't it? About ticket prices.
Exactly.
And it was like, look at the debt, or forget the debt and the dividends, because we're giving you a squeeze on ticket prices. So that's almost like the payoff.
Yeah.
What you could describe as attempted bribery. Obviously, it didn't work because everyone hated the Glazers anyway, and there was loads of protests regardless of whether United were being successful on the pitch or not. But that kind of felt like the reasoning behind it. But when I look at the numbers for this ticket price increase and the justification in it, for starters, the numbers, I know it's only about, is it 3% of the tickets? How much is that generating? Just for the optics of it all.
It's around 1.5 million, I think, it's generating.
Okay, it adds up, but is it that much to be saying to people, look, if you want to bring your kids and that, and you haven't got a season ticket, or you haven't got a ticket, it's going to cost you 66 quid. Yeah. If I were to take my 3 kids to the game, and obviously my missus as well, then what's that, 5 times? 300 quid for me and my family to go to the game. We ain't going to go. 330 quid, not happening. Then you've got Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who did an interview with Andy Mitten in the United We Stand, and he said a comment that everyone's picked up on. I'm not surprised. He said, should people in Fulham be paying more for their tickets, or less for their should United fans be paying less for their tickets than Fulham fans are? Yeah. Well, yeah. Fulham's one of the most affluent areas in Britain, and also you get higher wages in London than you do in Manchester. And so Jim Ratcliffe has come in and given it all this community stuff and the local fans and all the rest of it, and then you say something like that which is completely contradictory, people are going to call you out on it. So I just think the optics of all this isn't great, and you have to ask yourself, is it worth the miver? Yeah. Is it worth it? And also, there was still tickets available on Saturday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, no, Jay, that was because no one could get there because of the.
Oh, was it?
The traffic. That's what Ineos.
Well, right, okay.
Because of the wind and
there's that then. But the Everton game, I had someone asking me tickets. I went online. There was tickets available for the Everton game on the day of the game.
I think that was them getting a bit of PR out there.
Yeah. So listen, I understand there was issues with travel and stuff because the weather was shocking. But it just, for me, from a PR point of view, and I know I keep going on about optics and PR, it just comes across as shambolic.
So is it just in the end businessmen will be businessmen? Is that what it comes down to?
Yeah, I think. And listen, I understand that the argument, you have to make tough decisions. You have to change things because more of the same is going to give us more of the same on the pitch as well, which is not good enough. But then some of these decisions, and also, and I said this, is a good example for you. So Alex Ferguson not being kept on as an ambassador isn't the end of the world, right? He's 70-odd years old, sorry, or however old he is. Forgive me, I forget how old Sir Alex Ferguson is. He's 82.
Yeah.
Right, he's 82 years old. He's had a brain hemorrhage. He probably doesn't need to be doing lots of work. We get that, yeah? He's also been getting paid handsomely post-retirement. I understand all of that, and I understand the argument that you could go, look, he probably doesn't need them either. He's a rich man. Let's roll that back a little bit. Let's keep him on the club. He's still got a role. He's still got his statue. He's still got. You're going to see him around the ground. He's still a big part of Manchester United. He's got his stand, as well as his statue, obviously, and his street. He's still going to be a big part of Manchester United. He's just not going to have this role. If you did your own announcement and you sort of tried to put that out there and just say, look, Sir Alex Ferguson is going to be changing, his role at Manchester United. as he's taking a little bit of a step back, he'll be still involved in the club. Okay, fine, but you don't. It gets leaked. I think Adam Crafton broke the story, and it gets tagged as Ineos sack Fergie.
Yeah.
The optics are terrible. Yeah. And this is what I think the Ineos have got a big problem with, is PR. Yeah. Not just the decisions, but the PR of decisions.
Yeah. I mean, looking at this was 22-23 season, so it's a year or so out of date, but it's going to be roughly correct still. These are the cheapest adult season ticket per club.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the averages are. This is just the cheapest possible adult season ticket you can have. United, I think, are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th on the list in terms of most expensive, but quite substantially behind some of the people that were behind. So I think Ineos will be looking at stuff like this. So United's cheapest adult ticket is £532. Some of the teams above us, the likes of Brighton, Bournemouth, Wolves, Chelsea, Tottenham and Arsenal. The cheapest season ticket as an adult you can get to Arsenal is £926, almost £400 more than United, pushing double. So there's a lot of wiggle room, and obviously again, Arsenal, different situation, new stadium, based in London,
capital. Yeah.
In the capital, yeah, of course. And also they are London's biggest club, so they've got the biggest part of the country with the most fans in that biggest, richest part of the country. So I'm not saying we should be doing that, but Ineos will be looking at that going, why are Brighton charging more than us? Why do Bournemouth and Wolves charge more than Man United? That's what I think they will be saying, and obviously there's a lot of reasons behind that, but it's just a shame that it has to go the way it has. That will be
definitely stuff they're looking at.
Exactly. Yeah, of course it will. Because what right do Brighton have to charge their fans more than Man United fans? They don't win more. They're not bigger historically. I know Brighton's a relatively wealthy part of the country.
Going on a Rory Jennings route, isn't it? No, isn't it?
But do you know what I mean? But that is what Ineos will be saying, isn't it?
It's true.
So it's a shame because
the issue is, though, and I understand your point, is like the sheer contradiction of saying what you're saying. There was a statement and a sentence in that interview, and if you can get a chance, go and buy a copy of United We Stand and read the interview, because it is interesting. Where Jim Ratcliffe saying, I understand that this is a community club, we want to keep it a community club. We don't want to price out local fans, and we know that the working class, and we know that they can't all afford big prices, but we have to optimise tickets. Yeah. Well, those two things are opposite of each other. Yeah. They contradict each other. You can't have it both ways. You either say tough on local fans, if you can't afford it, you're not coming. Yeah. Or you say, we are going to make it affordable for local fans and make sure that everyone who's on a lower income can afford to come. But you can't have it both ways, which is what he's kind of trying to do. Yeah. Which that makes no sense. And again, the optics of it are bad.
Especially from the element of football's always been a relatively working class sport, and then obviously with these ticket prices and the way that it's been inflated now, is it almost prices a lot of working class people out of going to watch. Yeah. And obviously that does contradict the community element that he's talking about. But for me, I think I will continue to hark back to it, and I think it just all stems from the problems that Glazers have created. Because for me, I think if United were more successful over the last 10 years or so, we probably would have been better off and not made as bad decisions financially, and then we wouldn't be in a situation where Ineos are having to come in and make these tough decisions that obviously we agreeing and disagreeing with some. Yeah. For me, I think it just always harks back to them.
I get your point, Ronnie, Dave, and there's a validity into what you're saying as well. And I think, as a fan, you're always going to get that. The Ineos might get away with it for a bit, but what's going to happen now as well is people will start looking at things like your transfers, the wages players are on, the manager, the coaches and stuff. If you get rid of them, people are then going to start going, because you've seen a little bit of it, but Ineos can say, well, that's not necessarily anything to do with us. You saw a little bit of everyone going, well, the money you've saved would have paid for Anthony's wages for a week or whatever. You get a little bit of that.
People are going to say it with Dan Ashworth now, and you spent $3 million for him to basically get rid of him within 5 months, and then you've come out and said that you're not funding the United staff Christmas do.
You could have done the Christmas do for the next 10 years and kept with ticket prices the same as they were, and just not hired and sacked Dan Ashworth.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, sorry, you're right. It's already happened. Yeah, because I was already thinking the transfers are too soon because it's only this summer they've had. But you're right, though, the Dan Ashworth one, people look at that and go, you've wasted £3 million, whatever it is, on the compensation and his payoff, and that's what, half the money. That's double the money of what you've saved on tickets by doing this grossly unpopular decision.
Yeah. I want to get more into Dan Ashworth in a minute, but before that, let's hear a word from today's partners. Jay, Manscaped.
Manscaped, right? I don't know about you, but are you one of those lads, right, who wants your grooming routine to be a one-time and done deal, right? We're all busy, aren't we? Got stuff to do, yeah? We're on the go, yeah? Got to watch a bit of telly. I've got to go and protest outside Old Trafford. I've got to ring school and tell them I'm not picking up the kids because I forgot again. All that kind of thing, yeah?
So you didn't forget if you rang them, innit?
Good lad. You know what I mean? Didn't forget. That's it. How can I forgot? I rang him. Okay, it was an hour later, but I still rang him. Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean? So stop moaning. Yeah. So we need a one-time and done deal, and that's why Manscaped have got you covered, because they've got the beard and balls bundle, right? What you get for that, not only do you get 20% off and free shipping, of course, when you use the code Paddock24 and you click on the link in the description, you also get the beard hedger with the 20 length options, yeah? You get the Lawnmower Ultra 5.0 for your nether regions. So, the beard hedger, Joe, you're a big fan, aren't you? The 20 length options.
Yeah, I love it. It's great. And 20 length options is more than enough to get a little taper going. Obviously, it goes long enough as well that you can keep nice little shapes and sculpts going on to whichever way you declare fit. But here's something I want to talk about, and this is started toward the more vulgar end of the sculpting arena. But I will tell you right now, from a visual perspective, let's just say, if there's less of the pig hiding in the bush, the pig looks bigger. That's all I'm going to say.
So what are you saying? If you shave your pubs, your knob looks bigger?
Yes, basically.
Yeah.
Is that true?
I can attest to that,
Yeah. And you know what? Just trust me on that. And use the code Paddock24.
It is true.
Yeah, that'd be a nice little Christmas present for your other half as well, wouldn't it? I've got you a bigger knob for Christmas.
Oh, finally.
Yeah.
Threesome.
Why? What?
Right.
Where was that before?
To Manscaped.
Where was that before?
Where's that been?
You use the code.
Are you only
24.
excited now? Is what she's going to ask.
Yeah, exactly. It's taken that long. Use the code Paddock24 to get 20% off free shipping. But genuinely, Manscaped, absolutely brilliant. Beard and balls bundle. Go and check them out. Hopefully you could hear any of that. Your balls. And by the sound of it, your partner.
Yeah.
Threesomes
and all that.
Brilliant. Incredible. I want to talk about Dan Ashworth. Speaking of menage a trois.
Nice. Nice to do.
Barada, Ashworth, Wilcox. That band has broken up already. It felt like we were here to stay. Just before we get into any of this, how shocked were you when you saw that news, Jay?
Outright. Picture the scene.
Go on.
So it's Sunday morning, right? Yeah. I'm a bit knackered. I'm a bit down about hungover. Hungover. Don't tell anyone. And I was sat there and I was thinking, like, is it worth doing a vid today? I'm not scheduled to do anything, so I'll do a live. So I'll just do an update. I was thinking I might do one this afternoon. Just have a little live, little chat with the viewers and stuff and see what's going on. Mm-hmm. But I was in two minds. And then I got a message in my group chat, Ashworth gone. And I was like, what? So I thought, that's a bit fishy. Yeah. Went online, Twitter, seen the news, like Ornstein, the Oracle, so you know it's true.
It's mad how Ornstein just lies in wait in it.
Like he just knows everything.
And then just breaks.
Yeah, boom. And then everyone's on it.
Then he's gone for 2 months.
Yeah. Everyone sort of springs into action. So I was like, Jesus wept. So this was 9 o'clock, I think, when I'd read this, because we went live at 9:45, I think, by the time I'd shaved my head and put some clothes on and all that. Yep. And it was just like, what? This doesn't make any sense. So I kind of did a little bit of Googling or whatever, but I was sort of doing it on the live. I was going, look, here's the headline. Let's get into this article then together. Let's all watch it and read it together. Went through it all, and it was shocking because I feel like it's almost that old adage, and I'm paraphrasing here, where if you sack someone that quick, it kind of makes it look like you made a bad decision in the first place, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's like it's more on you for hiring them than it is on them for messing up. Because it's like, they barely had a chance to show you anything. It's just like, you've made that mistake. Now, the flip side to that is it's better to sort of cut it off quickly than to pursue something that's obviously not working or whatever. But it did seem premature.
It's twice they've done that already.
Go on.
With sticking with Ten Hag and then falling back on it, thinking they've made the wrong decision. Yeah. And then they've done the same thing with Dan Ashworth. Because there's two ways of looking at it. It does look poor from an optic standpoint when you've made a big decision and you've realised that it's the wrong one, but then some people might say it shows the fact that they won't linger with something if they think it's wrong, and they won't mind making a big decision of trying to rectify it straight away. But then it also leads you to believe that Ineos might actually have a little bit of a quicker trigger than people may assume, and that's what the sentiments that people were saying that were following Nice. saying that they can be quite ruthless with managers.
A little bit.
So does that make you any way concerned about Amorim, etc., and whether he'll be afforded enough time, especially when the owner Jim Ratcliffe is said to be a lot more involved in decisions than people may initially thought, and the fact that he is a little bit older, he has got that element of being a little bit of a fan, so he can be is he going to be a little bit impulsive, a bit emotional about things, and then he's up there in age as well, so he might want success to come really fast, so it might lead him to make really abrupt decisions as well. There's a lot of things, but obviously right now it's just speculation, but we just got to see how it kind of turns out.
It's a weird one for me, sacking him when they did. Sacking him after a game on a Saturday. Like, usually when managers or people of this magnitude at a football club get sacked, it's like my office first thing Monday morning. It's not like go to the under-21s game, come to Old Trafford, watch Forest, and then we'll sack you after that when your family are there. You know what I mean? It's typically... Erik ten Hag was seen driving into Carrington this morning at 9 a.m. He left shortly after, wasn't it? Yeah. It's not like do a full day of work and sack you at the end. That's a little bit of a red flag to me. I mean, I don't know, and we've got a video coming out at 7 that goes into all of the detail and exactly.
I'm looking forward to watching actually.
Sort of what people are saying. But is there a possibility that the straw that broke the camel's back happened on Sunday? Because on Saturday, sorry.
It does feel like it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Did something happen on Saturday? Because who sacks, like, come in, bring your family in, go and watch the game in the morning, come and watch United, we happen to have lost, and we're going to sack you on full time. What's that?
Do you want to, all right, let's still come up with a theory. You said that it was a bit touchy for a while.
Yeah.
With Dan Ashworth. Dan Ashworth wasn't super supportive about the Amorim appointment because he didn't want the system changing when they've bought players or invested in players and there's a team that aren't used to playing it.
I can understand.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
So he wasn't the biggest advocate for the appointment anyway. So that's all straight away a big problem when you've got a sporting director that isn't really in agreement fully with the appointment on the project going forward. And then we've lost back-to-back games, and I wonder if he was on his way out and then Dan Ashworth has said, didn't I told you so, maybe angle. It's not going to work, blah, 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 this and that. And they've probably just said, right then, leave.
Do you
think it could be something like that? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Obviously, we're guessing, and there's no reason to believe that that's true. But I do think it is odd doing it the way they've done it. Like,
do you know what? I didn't even think of that.
Sacking him at basically a full-time whistle after a game. What are the odds he gets sacked at full-time after a game? Like, he's not playing. He's not the manager.
Was he not the following morning, or was it? Or did it was it reported? Night. It was that night.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They said, is it Colette Roach, who's like COO or whatever she is, Chief Operating Officer? She's she's like fourth highest in command at United, very high up. Like took him out of a different exit than he usually comes out. Like it was like something was going down.
Yeah, like he fucking threatened to smash.
Was there an argument or something, or a dispute, or is basically he's come in and said?
We're completely guessing. Yeah. But could there have been a I told you so moment, or we should have got Southgate, or this is crap, this is never going to work, this system... Like, it just seems very weird to me to let a man who's so highly powered at Man United, the sporting director, he's probably top 10 most powerful people at Manchester United, maybe even higher than that, and you let him do a full day's work before sacking him at full time. That is an odd timeline.
The only other thing I can think that might have sort of pushed this decision over the last few weeks, especially, is if now with Amorim in, the coaching staff he's got, Barada, who obviously went over to Sporting and dealt with the move, with Wilcox there, almost as if Dan Ashworth isn't on the same page as everyone else.
I think,
and then he was all right for Ten Hag as a Ten Hag sporting director, but with Amorim, for whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe you're saying, Ronnie, he's not enamoured of the 3-4-2-1 or whatever. Him and Amorim, I'm not saying they fell out or anything, but there's the feeling that Dan Ashworth also he's not needed anymore. He's not that guy for this sort of
maybe him and Barada weren't that entwined, but obviously maybe, and also people might feel
explain your theory though. That doesn't explain explain what you've made a very good point is like why on the Saturday afternoon or evening, and the family thing's a good point as well, because I'd be fuming if I'd invited my family down to the game and they went, can I have a word with you? Yeah, just wait a minute. I'll put the kids in the car, be 1 minute. Yeah, what's happening? What?
Being sacked.
What?
So, and then he gets in the car and goes, I've been sacked. What? I can take us all to Turks and Caicos.
Yeah. There's good news and bad news. You're still thinking about the bad news.
When that payout lands.
Yeah, when that payout lands, don't you worry.
I think obviously people are saying that I don't think the whole relationship broke down during the Forest match.
No, you're not saying that. But you're saying,
was there a final straw that day?
Because you know what happens, right? Here's one for you. Do you remember when Sam Allardyce got sacked off Blackburn? The Venkies.
Yeah.
And that was a decision, right, that Blackburn have never recovered from as a club. They were in the Premier League. They had Sam Allardyce as the manager. They were stable. He was a very good manager. They got rid of him. Steve Keane took over. They stayed up that season. Next season they got relegated. They've never been back in the Premier League. So Venkies are a shambles. No one knows. Now, I remember chatting to someone because I used to cover Blackburn as a reporter, and they told me that what happened was the Venkies had taken over Blackburn, invited their family over from India, or their family, like, we own, Blackburn, to Old Trafford for the game. But this is us. We're at Old Trafford. We're the owners of this club. Blackburn that are playing here. Everyone's like, yeah, great.
Was this the Berbatov game?
Yeah. Got battered 7-1. We're raging because they've had
on the family,
The family are all here and they're just like, this is the team you bought. Jesus wept the shite. And they sacked Sam Allardyce like that weekend because they were just annoyed.
And a bit embarrassed
him. I'm not, obviously it's different losing to Forest, but is there something like that happen where it's been, like you're saying, there's been a bit of anger or embarrassment or something where maybe he said something or they're looking at it, they're already got the doubts.
They must,
And then this is like...
He's voiced that he doesn't think something's going to work and he thinks it's been the... And then it's just probably best that it back ways. But the timing of it is...
It would be funny if it was like, I told you so.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's gone like that to Barada, hammering.
I don't think it's necessarily hammering. I think it's more the fact of Ineos have coming wanting to do this thing where it's like there's a synergy between like the game model and the players that are there and the recruitment and stuff. And and I don't know whether Dan Ashworth probably thought it wasn't going to work, which is what's been reported, because the team hasn't obviously been recruited in the summer for the system, and then you bring in Amorim to kind of turn water into wine with a team and profiles that don't suit it. And he's probably thinking it would have been better to stick with a manager or gone away where the players probably play a 4-3-3 or something they're more used to. And then I don't know whether he's then seen it and just gone, oh, look, it's not going to work. Or he just had a problem with the transition. I don't think it's necessarily Amorim himself, because I think too early. It's too early to say that.
And let's have a look at that a bit.
Yeah.
Go on.
I was what I say as well. Some people said, and I said this morning in my news, and a lot of this is just not what's being reported, but conjecture that I'm seeing on social media and even in my group chats. Oh, the transfer window this summer was bad, and they've looked at him and gone, you've messed up the transfer window, and this is a shame. But actually, look at the transfer window that United have had. And I know we're in the bottom half of the table. I'm not saying we've set the world alight. Obviously, we haven't. But in terms of the players we've brought in, I think other than Xerxes, most of those signings, people are going, yeah, there's a good signing.
The best part was the best part of the summer was the clear out that
and
that
you
we
got
had.
Good money for Mason Greenwood, who obviously wasn't going to kick a ball for Manchester United. McTominay,
got rid of
Sancho. I know he's doing well at Chelsea, but it weren't happening for him at United. Let's not rewrite history. So I don't buy into the idea that they've looked at the transfer window and gone in the beginning of December, gone, actually, that transfer window we had was so bad that we're going to sack the Sporting.
We haven't mentioned the other elephant in the room, and it's him being apparently an advocate for Ten Hag staying.
Well, that's what I wanted to get on to.
Do you know what I mean? And
there's
that could have been it as well.
There's two elements to this. You sort of mentioned the Amorim one to start with, but let's go into a bit more detail. Before we saw who the replacement for Ten Hag would be, the reports were that Ashworth in particular was keen on keeping Ten Hag, and Ratcliffe wasn't. So immediately, Ashworth arrives in whenever it is, the start of July, and that decision is being made, and he is up against and disagrees with Ratcliffe. That's a bad footing to start your relationship on, isn't it? Like, that's not going to...
I mean, do you know what I mean? It is, you're right. And I know you're going to go into the Athletic article later on today, but the Athletic article sort of added the point of it was difficult for Ashworth because there's only so many conversations he can be involved in, because technically he's still on leave. He's still on a gardening leave, so he's not meant to be communicating with Manchester United, really, even though he probably was. So he's got to be careful there. There was also this point of when I think him and Barada spoke to the media ahead of the Liverpool game, Ratcliffe wasn't happy with the way that sort of conversation went, where it was like them almost saying, well, we don't see, not saying it, but like insinuating that keeping the manager wasn't their decision.
Yeah.
which I don't think Ratcliffe liked.
Well, I went back and read that whole interview again after I heard that.
Yeah.
So here's the exact quote on that. So this is obviously those two being interviewed. Dan Ashworth gets asked, so you had no hand in keeping him? That's Eric Ten Hag. He said, I didn't start till July the 1st, so none whatsoever. All I can do is reiterate what I remember saying. I've really enjoyed working with Eric for the last 8 weeks. I see my job is to support him in every way possible, and whether that's operationally, whether that's with recruitment, whether that's with medical, whether that's psychology, whether that's training ground flow, it's just to take as much off him to allow him to fully focus on the training pitch and match tactical plan to deliver success for United. And the match tactical plan. So that first bit, I didn't start till July the 1st, so none whatsoever.
I think he could have worded that better. I think he could have said, obviously I didn't start till July, so I didn't have a say in it, but I would have backed this manager because he's the right man for the job. He could have said that, but he didn't. I mean, it's up to him, he can say what he wants. But I think that would have probably been a better way of doing it rather than going, none, well, I'm going to work with him anyway.
Yeah, and there was another bit that followed up from that I wonder if bothered Ratcliffe as well, because he was then asked, Dan, you said that things aren't down to one man. Did you not consider drawing a line with recruitment this summer, as Eric has had some sway under the previous regime? Yet there's a continuation of that thread with Xerxes, De Ligt and Mazraoui in terms of getting his former players. And Ashworth said, again, I can't comment on what's happened previously. I don't know how they've made decisions on players coming in, and I've already alluded to it's a joining up process. We look at objective, subjective opinions and come up with the best possible solutions we can to fill the positions we've identified. So I wonder if there's an element of Ashworth not taking responsibility for this summer that we've had, and maybe that's something that Ratcliffe was bothered by. I mean, I don't know. He's left, hasn't he? So we're trying to look for any possible crack.
Has it not been reported that he was though, like, involved in some of these transfer dealings?
Yeah.
As in, like, someone.
I think
Xerxes was one.
The one they're saying he's not involved in was De Ligt.
Which is very interesting because De Ligt was someone that he chased as the sporting director of Newcastle.
Yeah.
It's weird
so people put one and two together thinking it was because of that.
I know Mazraoui and De Ligt came together, but apparently, like, for some reason, I'm sure the Athletic article, and you read it, said De Ligt was the one that he wasn't involved in, which I don't know why he was involved in all the others, not that specific one, but there must be a reason behind it. It does feel a little bit like, you sort of, because you got to remember, me and you, we all spoke about it after the Liverpool game. The timing of that interview wasn't great because it was this interview that's going, this manager, we were getting behind him and all the rest of it, and then he gets, a 3-0 loss at home to Liverpool, and people going, his job's not looking too secure. If you saying I wasn't involved, none whatsoever, and not adding the caveat of, had I been involved, I would have advocated for keeping him. Which is probably the best thing to say.
Especially when, by the sound of it, you were the biggest one advocating to keep him.
Yeah,
behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That
doesn't... And also, in the Athletic article, and I know you're going to go into it in depth later on, but when I was reading it this morning and like yesterday from news, it was like this whole thing of the suggestions that Dan Ashworth was making as a replacement for Ten Hag, Eddie Howe, Marco Silva, Thomas Frank.
Yeah, potentially Gareth Southgate as well.
Potentially Gareth Southgate. I don't know if the article mentions
him.
No,
the Athletic don't mention that. Right. Other people do. Just to be
sorry.
Other journalists have said that.
Because I remember sort of almost looking for that and he didn't say it. But like that didn't impress Jim Ratcliffe that you go in, well, I know these people. I think Jim Ratcliffe, according to the article, was like, I don't just want people you know. Yeah. I want you to have almost like a bank of managers we can go to and their strengths and weaknesses or whatever. And he wanted him to think a little bit more further afield than just, I met him, he's all right. Yeah. And also, just if you've got any sort of football knowledge whatsoever, I mean, you guys may disagree, but suggesting Marco Silva to manage Manchester United, I'm sorry, that's fucking insane. I think.
Do you reckon?
I think massively, yeah. I'm sorry. And I might be saying it because I know a lot of Evertonians who can't stand him, and I know Watford, he fell off a cliff. Like, yes, he's done well at Fulham, but this is a guy who's got a patchy
he's got as many
managerial
L's as he has W's.
He's not a
it feels like everyone's a gamble.
But some of them are,
because people are saying the same for Areola at Bournemouth now as well. But
forget that.
Areola's probably got a more impressive.
CV, more blemish-free.
Marco Silva's if you want to look at his CV, like you said, you nailed it there. There's as many L's as W's. It's like, it is not, for me, anyone who should be managing Manchester United, unless he was to go and do something ridiculously good at Fulham.
Because some people argue that, like, when you judge managers, a manager's ability is best like valued when they're at clubs that are relatively poor.
Yeah.
Rather than club managers that go to teams with really good players or with high-end budgets, where the management style is different, where it's more about just putting players in their best positions and kind of just optimising the talent you've got. Yeah. So with Iraola, obviously you see what he's doing at Bournemouth, and then he had a really, really good spell at Rayo Vallecano as well. I think La Liga fans said that he used to cause the likes of Atletico Madrid and Barcelona and Real Madrid fits with a Rayo Vallecano team. And obviously you've seen how good he's done at Bournemouth. So I think that's a little bit different.
I get your point about Iraola, but the Marco Silva one for me was a red flag.
Looking at his record, at Hull he had a 36% win rate. Again, it's not just
he inherited a relegated team, or a team that's on the verge of relegation.
Watford 30%, Everton 39%, Fulham 44.5%, which is good for a team that part of that was, I think, being promoted again, wasn't it? So he's done well at Fulham, but and win percentage isn't the only metric by which you judge a manager, obviously. But those aren't the numbers of the next United manager, are they? They're just not.
They're not. I mean, he's not that guy.
So with that in mind, then obviously everything's kind of been filtered through this thing.
Who wanted Marco Silva? He was at that.
Dan Ashworth apparently had his suggestions according to Athletic were Eddie Howe, which again is fraught with problems. Even if you could get him, is the first question. Would he leave Newcastle? Would they be willing to get rid of him? Are they going to let Dan Ashworth go?
This is the problem. Because if you say Gareth Southgate now, it just seems Gareth Southgate and Eddie Howe from Dan Ashworth as a suggestion just seems like jobs for mates.
Yeah, that's the thing. Clear, like Jay said, Southgate wasn't mentioned in the Athletic.
They mentioned Eddie Howe,
mentioned elsewhere,
Marco Silva, and Thomas Frank, and apparently according
Graham Potter.
Graham Potter. All massively underwhelming to Ratcliffe, and also the idea is these have got Premier League experience, which isn't the be-all and end-all, and also I know them.
Yeah.
Which we've been there with David Moyes, haven't we? Fergie knew the family. I know Fergie denies that he had any say in that, but come on.
Nah, jobs for mates can be like it can be a dangerous one, because some people are even throwing away the conspiracy that Barada wasn't a fan of Dan Ashworth, and they think he's involved in pushing him out because someone that he's previously worked with at another club has left their post at Man City. So I don't know if that has any legs in it, in cheeky.
And do you know what? I like some conspiracy theories.
Yeah, me too. And there was also reports, wasn't there?
I can never say his name correctly. The City's.
Siggy Biggie Star.
Yeah, I can never say his name.
I hate it because people think I'm doing it deliberately. You know, like when like your ex gets with someone else and you don't know the name. Oh, you're still seeing that Dom. You know his name's Dave.
Darren.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
That Dom guy.
Yeah, like Siggy Biggie.
And then she responds saying, "How do you know his name?"
Oh shit!
But I don't.
There were also some suggestions that Ashworth kind of saw that Amanda Staveley had left Newcastle and maybe wouldn't have left if. But I'm sure that was pre-agreed. The word at the time was that she was always going to be there for 3 years or whatever it's been. Maybe that isn't true. Let's just flip it a little bit, because I think we've come at a lot of this from Ineos are doing loads of bad things. It's not very good on the pitch. Therefore, this must be a terrible thing that's happened here. Do you think there's something to the fact of maybe he just wasn't a good fit? And when you bring in something like 8, 9, 10 new people above the manager, they aren't all going to be seamless transitions and successful sort of transfers, if you want to call them transfers. Do you think maybe they were right to get rid of him, and that from what we're hearing, there isn't a unity of vision, he disagrees with the people around him, and he's not doing the job that he's being paid for?
Maybe, yeah. I think that there was one little point it said in the Athletic article as well, which was that I think it was Ruben Amorim's second day he went on holiday, Dan Ashworth. Little things like that can just rub people up the wrong way or make people doubt you. I know it sounds trivial, but you got a new manager coming in. He's always head coach. He's second in a job. I'm sure this is what the Athletic article said. And you're going off on your holidays now. There's there could be reasons for that. I think he said he had family.
After spending months gardening.
Yeah, like. It just doesn't look great, does it? And if you're,
he had been on holiday for 5 years.
And if you're like, this is it. We've just got rid of a manager that you wanted to keep. The wheels came off. Yeah. We're bringing the new head coach. Omar Barada's flown over to Sporting. We've paid an extra £1 million to get him here early, so he's not doing his 30-day notice. He gets here, and the next day you're off to Blackpool. Nah, bro.
After, as Joe just said, he's literally spent months and months on holiday.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Like. Hang on a minute, Dan. That to me might be something. Again, I said it this morning where it's like when you get a yellow for a series of fouls rather than one big foul. Yeah. It feels like a load of niggles, going on holiday on his second day. maybe
not flying
to Portugal. Advocating for managers that were underwhelming. The data thing where he wanted to outsource the data analysts, where apparently Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I think the telly's gone off behind me. Sir Jim Ratcliffe was sort of questioning that, saying, well, oh no, it's not, ignore me, I'm an idiot.
It did go off.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Oh, you fixed it, well. Where he was like, I mean, that's got to hurt when you say to your gaffer, he says, well, data, and you go, we should outsource it. And he goes, that's your job. What are we outsourcing it for? And you go, all right, outsource.
Yeah.
So on the positive standpoint, from what Joel's saying about it, we're saying it's a load of negatives. A positive angle could just be the fact that they realised Dan Ashworth wasn't a fit and it wasn't going to work, and he just cut ties and just decided to make the decision. Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily always a bad thing if you realise the decision you made isn't right and just making a decision to reverse it quite quickly.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's true.
The problems will come where if this becomes a trend, where in 18 months Barada's no longer here and Wilcox is no longer here.
Well, I was just going to say, would you not be slightly looking over your shoulder a little bit if you're Omar Barada?
Who maybe should be looking over the shoulder? The person who hired Dan Ashworth in the first place. Because if you're judging Ashworth based on the transfers and his hires, surely the person who's fundamentally failed here is the one that brought Dan Ashworth to the club.
Is that Brailsford?
I don't know if it's Brailsford or Ratcliffe himself or whatever. And, you're kind of accepting you've messed up by sacking this guy who's such an important person in the club so quickly. But I do think that, like you said, Ronnie, if there was a fundamental mismatch of ideas, he seems to me maybe some of his ideas, and I'm sure he's not old-fashioned, but like all the list of people you want to hire are people you've already worked with in your career. The Brighton boss, the Newcastle boss, the England boss, the Brentford boss, and the Fulham boss, they're the best managers in the world, are they? And they just so happen to the people you know.
To be fair,
like that seems like an odd coincidence.
To be fairness to him, and we've pretty much done it the whole time, we are just speculating.
We are, we're speculating
because we don't actually know what actually happened.
I get all that. I get that.
We're speculating from both sides.
But also, of all the journalists out there, there's few I trust more than Laurie Whitwell. Yeah. There's a reason he's got his own show on this channel. We didn't just pluck that out of the air. And if he's done a deep dive and he's come up with these reports, I believe him.
Yeah.
I do. I'm not just saying that because he's my mate. I do. I think there's a due diligence there with Laurie. He will never write something he didn't and got stood up. No. So he must have heard that from someone reliable, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe was unimpressed with these decisions or these suggestions. Yeah. So I do think there's some truth in it, 100%. Yeah. And if this was, sorry, I didn't mean to. No. If this was Custis or someone, or it was someone at the Manchester Evening News, I would be like, well, maybe they just made that up. Yeah. But I do think there's something in it.
Yeah, and the thing as well of like, so the managers thing, the list that he put forward, they weren't keen on, which can happen. Then not going for that conversation with Barada when Amorim was named, and obviously disagreeing with that. That's a fundamental problem as well, isn't it? Obviously, everyone's going to have disagreements. Behind the scenes, you never know what goes on. And I'm sure at this level, there's people disagreeing on every single minor decision because these are all people who are very opinionated, who are used to getting their own way, who are used to having their decisions be validated by points and results and financial success. So it makes sense that we're not going to agree on everything. But if this became a problem where Ashworth wasn't really accepting what we're seeing, didn't want to push the whole club to change, and maybe he's right, maybe he will be right on the Amorim thing, we don't know yet obviously, but you can see why the owners didn't want to stick with someone that they thought disagreed with the current future of the club.
Too many, just simply could just be too many cooks in the kitchen, and that's how it is. But what this club, man, innit? It just it swallows everyone, like players, managers, sporting directors. It just
no one's safe.
No one's safe.
Isn't it mad
Commit your casualty, innit?
What we in December?
Yeah.
We've already had the manager's gone. Ruud van Nistelrooy's been and gone.
Yeah.
I think was it Rennie Acker? Didn't he come in the summer? He's already gone.
Fergie's gone.
Fergie's not got his job anymore. Now we've got Dan Ashworth, who came in with all this fanfare, and we waited for him, and Newcastle wanted 20 million quid, and we settled on 3 and all the rest of it. He fucked him off.
Yeah.
I mean, bloody hell.
I do think that we've got a few super chats to get through.
For want of a better word.
I do think though that
football, bloody hell.
Even if it was the right thing to get rid of him, and there was a fundamental disagreement, it was never going to work. We realised that Barada and Wilcox kind of bridged that gap that he was meant to be in anyway. So maybe they didn't need quite a high-profile, high-wage person doing that job. Because you've got to remember as well, Berardi's come from basically being a sporting director. Was he technical director at Man City? So he's gone from that to CEO. All of his experiences in this world that Ashworth is meant to live in. If Berardi had come from a financial point and came this way, you could see why there wouldn't be an overlap there. But Berardi's kind of used to doing Ashworth's job and has now got way more responsibility as CEO. So maybe he's kind of 3/4 the way between the two kind of thing, like doing some of that stuff anyway.
This might sound a little bit left field.
Go on.
But, like, I don't know, right? You know when we was on tour?
Yeah.
And they're all there?
Yeah.
There was a little bit more of a gravitas with Berardi, I felt, and even Wilcox.
Here we go.
Right.
Retrospectively slamming.
Yeah, this is confirmation bias now, isn't it? Right.
Whereas with Ashworth, it did feel a bit like, hey, right, lads, hey, we are.
Do you think
you know what I mean?
He's a bit
like,
more...
honestly, I got more fearful because I'm still a wuss, even though I'm from the ends, right?
Yeah.
I was a bit like, around Berardi, for example, when I was at that gaff where he was there, I wasn't like, hey, you okay? He was a bit like, oh, that's on my Berardi, and he carried himself like, Wilcox could be, he's all right, you know, he let on, but he didn't seem like the most approachable guy. Dan Ashworth seemed a bit more jovial, a bit like more down with.
Do you think Ashworth's like...
Maybe there's a bit like, you know...
He just wants the pint after work.
Yeah! Dad, do you know what I mean? Lads.
Forget all this manager BS, right?
He's on it. There's a beach down there with our name on it.
Me,
just
Potter, Southgate.
Just as the Zoom call.
We're all going to be in the Wetherspoons.
Just as the Zoom call ending, innit?
Yeah.
Excuse me, it's all right, lads. Like, who's coming up? When there's still work to do for the rest of the day. Do you know what I mean?
That'll still be there in the morning, that.
Allardyce is there.
Yeah.
He's going to be there. He's an absolute laugh, right? Ten Hag's going to be there. Talk of the devil. He'll be in the pub.
In his United tracksuit still probably.
He's getting the Dutch lines in already. He loves it. But I reckon, Dan Ashworth's just an absolute banter merchant from the 90s.
Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating.
Southgate sticking his nose in it.
Yeah, I think you might have exaggerated.
Gaz will be there. Yeah. Don't worry about it. Yeah, maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way around.
Yeah.
Or I'm making sure.
We've got loads of super chats. Thank you very much for sending those in. Danny Wild says, to be honest, I'm not asked about Ashworth. If you go back, Fergie ran everything, and if any staff had attitudes towards... if I had attitudes, they were out, i.e. Keane, too many cooks up the paddock. We said this before, didn't we, Jay? I wonder if, when we lost Fergie, as in his role, obviously, one thing we lost was the toughness and the strictness, and you know what? The nastiness sometimes at times. Because everyone who's ever been around Sir Alex Ferguson for a long time will tell you he had a nasty side that was maybe even a bit of a bully at times. And he had to be like that. To run an organisation like United and keep him at the top for as long as he did, he couldn't take shit. And I wonder if someone like Ratcliffe doing this, or just Ineos in general and the way they're being ran, people aren't accepting. You don't get a bad transfer window as they saw it, and a bad recruitment of a new manager, and back in the previous manager when it was never going to work, and whatever else is going on with Ashworth, because we don't really know, of course. And you do that, and that's it, you're done. Because we can't accept people getting things wrong over and over again, and a little pat on the back and come on, you'll be right next time, another transfer window, another manager, another this. Maybe at times someone like that with those kind of standards will push United forward. Do you think that at all, or do you think it's just covering up the fact that they've made an error?
You make a good point there. Two things, like Fergie was very ruthless and had those standards, but also had that warmth where when I spoke to Chucky about it, Fergie would stop and say, who's that over there? And it'd be like, you know, a new lady on the canteen, and he'd go and get her and bring them over, and what's her name? And he'd go over and introduce himself, and he wanted to know everyone's name, and he wanted to maintain that sort of family feel. But the standards, Chucky told me about the time when we lost to Liverpool. Chucky's doing his coaching badges, gets to Carrington, can't find anyone. There's no one in reception, there's no one on the training pitches, wherever. You can hear a noise in the background. He goes into one of the rooms, and Fergie's got the entire staff in there, giving them all a rollicking, saying that the standards at this football club are through the toilet. That's why we're getting beat off Liverpool. That sort of just driven determination that everyone has to be on the same page. Everyone has to, you know, reach the sort of the top level. Otherwise, if one of us is just like taking our eye off the ball, standards are going to slip. Let alone if you're the sporting director. So there might be something in that, bro. Yeah. And you might need a bit of that. All I would say is, I was going to say this earlier and I forgot, is this is the time if we're going to do this chaotic turnover, new manager, new coaching staff, new this. I don't want this again next season. No, or the season after. Yeah. Fair enough, you're doing it now. Let's get settled and let's have a bit.
That's the main thing that's bugged me. Yeah. It's like, we're at the start of December, even at the end of November, and we're already like looking towards next season. It just feels like another season in the wind.
It does, you're right,
Do you know what I mean?
And I wish it didn't. And I've tried to be, I'm not saying.
And
listen,
that stemmed from the summer decisions, really. Do you know what I mean? And I feel for Amorim, to be honest, with the situation he's in. Obviously, we know how dysfunctional the club is. We know we've got players which people would remind me about under Ten Hag that aren't good enough, which was also true. There's definitely a quality issue there. There's definitely a mentality issue there. There's definitely a physical issue there as well. And then to come in without a pre-season, without any signings of your own recruitment, with a team and a squad that's massively failing, and then you've got to completely change the system. I just think it's going to be a difficult season and a season of pain for the rest of it. And I think I won't be able to rightly judge anything from him until next season, when he's had a lot more time and stuff. But it's difficult, innit? I said United will drive you to alcoholism. I think it probably is true. It definitely did to me Saturday night. And there comes a point where you get a little bit defeatist, and you're looking at it and you're like, are United ever going to be good again?
The Amorim one for me has to work. Yeah. I can't do it now.
Like, I've said it. I've
been saying this for 10 years or 11 years or whatever. But if we're getting who's your man there from Bournemouth, Areola, what's his name? Yeah. If we're getting him in next season, no. I'm not sitting here again going, this is the one.
It is traded now, and it's like we've been off the view.
I'm not doing that.
No, because a lot of people would say to me, and obviously when I would be criticised Ten Hag and the tactical, some people said, the players and this and that. It's true, and to be fair, a lot of it could actually come to be true. Yeah. From what people used to say to me, people used to argue back and fight back with me, saying it wasn't just him. I never said it was just him, but even the Forest game, when I was looking at it, I was like, yeah, a lot of people are actually right about some of these players. It's just some like things that a manager has no control of, and it's like Bruno doing the pass and then Anana after it, and you can see the goal like that. What part of that's coaching? Do you know what I mean? And then you've got like the low pulling out on the edge of the box instead of tackling, and then the cross goes in. Then Euro gets beat in the air, and then the ball just floats, and then Martinez just lets it go in the bottom corner. It's just, they're just things, and it's just even just like errors, simple footballing IQ and things. It's just like, shit, do we actually need a completely new team? Like, from start to finish, do you know what I mean?
Honestly, do you know what? I was looking at it and I was thinking, on Saturday, fucking hell. Right, we could. You remember when what was it? Ralph Ragnick said we need open heart surgery. You think
we've tried open heart surgery?
Have we got any better since then?
But how many players have we sold and bought since Ragnick said that? Is it like we've bought 14 players and sold about 25? It's not like we've gone, cheers, Ralph. We're going to stick with Fred and McTominay and Martial.
That's the winning thing, though. I agree. I agree. That's the winning thing, though. I feel like if we had Ralph Ragnick sat in that dugout now, he'd be saying the same thing again.
I think it's tough to break the cycle because.
It really is tough.
Because playing football, sometimes people play better with better players and in better environments, obviously. Yeah. And you can actually be a decent player and come into a United team, which has been a bit of a shambles over the last 10 years, and have your level brought down to it.
This is what I wanted to say.
Do you know what I mean?
This is the sad thing for me. In the meantime, whoever we bring in, we drag them down to our level.
You're going to drag them down to the level of it being a bit of a mess.
How many times have we seen it? Some of the players we brought in. Casemiro, amazing that first season, dragged him down to our level. I'm not taking all the blame away from these people I'm about to speak about, by the way, but look at how they were when they arrived and how they were after 2 years of being here. Lisandro Martinez comes in his first season, is amazing. We're slowly dragging him down to our level.
Jeez, something's going on with him.
Cristiano Ronaldo, same thing. Jadon Sancho, same thing. And all of these people, they have their own responsibilities, their own weaknesses, yes, but they come in with these massive reputations, massive skill sets, and within 18 months, they look like any other United player. And the only one that is even remotely held his standards in the last few years is Bruno Fernandes. He's just trying to keep his chin above the water. But even him we're dragging down.
And to be fair, because one of the last points I want to make is...
Before Wally...
Is United... at a point now where it needs to make a very, very important and serious and big decision on personnel, because I think that was what kick-started the kind of recovery of a few of the rival sides. And
Coutinho being sold at Liverpool.
Coutinho being sold at Liverpool. Yeah. Arteta coming in and getting rid of Aubameyang and Aubameyang, a player that was banging in 20 goals a season in the Premier League all the time. Just thought people like Liverpool need to move on from this. You even had City all those years ago when it was a bit controversial when they got rid of Joe Hart. Yeah. Josh Hart's basketball player, NBA got made. But is it one of those where United are going to have to make a decision on some of our marquee big earners,
or a Rashford or a Bruno,
in terms of a rebuild standpoint, and will that sometimes be maybe the kickstarter from like a mentality and a cultural perspective to kind of rebuild from the bottom up?
Maybe it will.
Yeah. Maybe.
Do you have to go, Ronaldo? If you go now, if you want, we'll do your Wally of the Week first because we've got a few super chats to go through.
Go on, you give us your Wally of the Week.
Who's your Wally of the Week?
I can't.
Go on, you can do
it. I'm going to say, should I just jump on him like everyone else with Jamie Carragher?
Go on then. What's this? I'm not saying this.
In his thing where he's white. To be fair, I don't mind it because he's winding Liverpool fans up on purpose with the whole not giving Salah any credit thing. With the Palmer for Player of the Year. But other than that, I could just name the usual, which is what happens after every time that Arsenal drop points. It's the way that their fans then come up with think pieces and all sorts of graphs to explain why they've lost. And Arsenal fans will always post every single stat and graph possible apart from the league table. And so for me, it could be them or it could be Jamie.
Yeah. I was told that this was their second best performance of the season, or third best performance of the season, in another game that they dropped points. Thank you, Ronnie. We'll get through some of these super chats. Akash K says, Jay, I can't lie, I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe is far too involved for my liking. I don't want to see a replacement for Ashworth because there are too many egos flying around and not enough synergy. Do you worry that Ratcliffe's, as a non-footballing person, is too involved in the running of United?
I feel like he is involved. Time will tell whether that's a good thing or not. Yeah. But it feels like this thing about I'm just going to let them get on with it is nonsense. The word pivotal was used in that Ornstein article to describe his role in sacking Dan Ashworth. So that's involved.
Yeah,
it is.
It is involved.
So, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Time will tell. He's a very, very successful businessman. He's the most successful British businessman ever. Does that mean he's going to be a successful owner of a football club or power owner? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Joshua Bellwater says, I think he's coming across as very out of touch, putting the Manchester back in Manchester by pricing out locals with London prices. I agree. Abhinav Verma says, every article claims that no one wanted Xerxes. I feel for the guy. He doesn't deserve this. Yeah, it's a shame when a transfer like that happens where it's like no one wants to take responsibility for it. Glenn F, who's been a member for 45 months, thank you very much, Glenn, says, hey up lads, are you happy with how the club seems to be heading under Amorim? Ineos will get it right, but it might not be pretty all the time. I don't even feel like I can comment yet. I like what we're seeing in some things. I like what he's saying about running more. I do think that's something United have liked a lot, the effort and intensity of how we play. He seems to have spotted that immediately and wants to turn that around. But we remember, Ten Hag did the same thing, didn't he? Made him do all the running when the first came in. I think Solskjaer mentioned it when we first started well about the running numbers. Like all of our new managers come in and say they don't run enough. They don't run enough. And then the old manager leaves and the new one comes in and says they don't run enough. They don't run enough. So it's like you get them to run for a bit, but if they're not winning titles by the end of it, it's like, well, what's the point in doing all this running? So how long will that last even?
I don't know. Listen, I like Amorim, but I get your point. It's too early to see what's. I think he's the right appointment, but we'll have to wait and see whether he's going to be successful, if that makes any sense.
Before we carry on with Wally of the Week, Sub N says, what I've heard, I feel Ineos did the right thing by parting with Ashworth. He may have caused problems to Amorim in recruiting players that Amorim needs. We don't really know, do we? It's all a lot of speculation. But
and also, it'll be NDA'd out of his head, won't it?
Yeah, I know. We'd love to get him on here for an interview, but I don't think that's likely. Who's your Wally of the Week?
There's a bloke, right, who sits on his desk, goes by the name of Jay Motty. And he said that Chris Wood won't score on his birthday. And he said, I wouldn't swap on Joe Nana for any keeper in the world.
I forgot about this.
And those two things couldn't have gone worse for me at the weekend if they tried. Chris Wood did score on his birthday, so I was a Wally for that one. And Joe Nana had his worst game since Galatasaray last season. Or the season before, whenever it was.
I forgot about the Chris Wood thing. No, we had a bit of a debate on the preview, didn't we?
Yeah,
and I said,
went, shut up. You compared him to Michael Jordan. And I literally went, shut up. You're comparing him to the great, arguably the greatest sports person ever. Yeah. Oh, it's my birthday, I'm going to be 33, I'll just score. And he fucking did.
He did. And it was a good header as well. I mean, it should have been blocked, but he did score. You reminded me of something then. What were you talking about before that?
Yeah. And that's not even counting the Onana thing, where I sat here and I literally said, Andre Onana, I wouldn't swap him for anyone. Yeah. And then he literally didn't save anything at the weekend, had his worst game in ages, and one was straight at him. And then he did that thing with a free kick in the last minute, which nearly gave me a heart attack with anger.
Straight out for a goal kick, basically.
Well, that one, but where he threw the ball into the other half.
Oh, yeah, I felt a little bit sorry for him.
No, I didn't. It was so dumb.
He threw the ball into the half. That was stupid. And then he brought it back, and then the ref got full pedantic mode after that.
But it was still well forward in the second attempt. You could see it, because I was right in line. I was in different seats with him. And you could see it. Because the linesman had gone and stood more or less where it was.
Does a little
I know, but when you've already been flagged up and you've already thrown it into, there's a fucking line separating the two halves, and you've thrown it over one of them. Yeah. Like, and then he says, "Oh, and you move it back," like you're being a dickhead as well, because you're going, "All right, I'll move it back here then." And he's going, "No, move it back to where it was." It was stupid, and it wasted and then he did a shit free kick. Yeah. I wouldn't have minded all that if he did a decent free kick. It was so dumb, and I was just like, "Oh, Andre, man, I've backed you so much. Why are you doing this to me?" Seriously, it was just like one of those games where, for him, everything went wrong.
Just with Onana, and I'm only repeating stuff I'd said before, but the more that time goes on, the more I'm backing myself on my view of him. I'm not even gonna slag him off for that, because he had a shocking game. In particular, that second goal, obviously. The other two, I don't really blame him for. No. But that second goal was ridiculous, and I saw a stat that from the point where he hits that shot, 97% of the time that shot gets saved. Right. So you're looking at a terrible let-in there by Onana. But you have to look at his numbers as a whole, because with Onana, and I keep saying this, he's a predictive goalkeeper. What he does is he dives early, he guesses where you're going to go, and that allows him to accumulate what had up until the weekend been the most prevented goals of anyone in Europe, because he goes early and he knows where you're going to go before you do. He went early, he went to the right-hand side, he thought, well, I think it was Martinez trying to block the shot on this side, so he has to come back across his body. I'm going to go to my right, and it's moved a little bit in the air and gone into his left. And I just think you have to accept that with him. He's not going to be like, there's a lot of keepers who watch and wait and dive late, and then you get some great saves out of it, but then if it goes right in the corner, they're never saving it. Onana's style is to do the opposite, and the odd time where he gets that prediction wrong, he looks like an absolute fool, and he lets in an absolute clanger like that. But I think you have to judge him over a season. Did he stop more than he saved, more than he let in? And if he does, he's had a decent year, and if he don't, he hasn't. But
that's fair. Listen,
his career is going to be littered with silly goals.
I'm not going to pretend that I was quite as kind as you are towards him when I was sulking on the way home, but I get your point. I don't like him, and I still like him. I'm not saying I don't think he's a good keeper. I'm not even blaming him. I'm blaming myself for praising him before the game. It's my fault. That's why I'm the Wally of the week, not him. Me.
It's not him.
Everything he did wrong on Saturday is down to me praising him.
And my Wally of the week, I don't know actually.
You've only had an hour and a half.
I tell you what, it's not a Wally of the week, but it's myself for.
Look at you copying me.
No.
Like, Jesus, I'm going to make
it. For not telling Tom Cooney that he was on with Nathan Ellington. Because you know Tom, he supports United, but he'll go and watch Wigan as well. He likes Wigan's like his second team.
Oh, really?
And obviously Nathan Ellington is like a Wigan legend.
Yeah.
Tom didn't know he was going to be on with Nathan. They've never met before.
Really?
And apparently Tom was just like starstruck for 25 minutes.
Oh, that's
and
class.
Kept telling him how much he liked him and stuff. I need to go back and watch it. Was it good? He went really red when he turned up.
Really?
So apologies to Tom for not letting him know he was going to be on with one of his heroes, but at the same time, that's kind of great.
That's class. Yeah. That is good stuff. I was gutted actually, not on Nathan Ellington. He's good stuff.
Yeah, it is. Hit the like button if you haven't already, please. And also, these podcasts are all available on Spotify. And if you're watching them, if you listen to them on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, they're also obviously on YouTube, of course. We're back tonight. I've got a little breakdown.
Just do, as well, get well soon to Russell from UCFB. I hope you're feeling better, bro. Down there today, he's not been well, but good to see some of the students there smashing it. So
Lovely.
Yeah, get well soon.
Nice. Yeah, and like I said, we're back tonight at 7 o'clock for a breakdown on exactly what happened with Dan Ashworth, all the detail, all the latest.
I've been looking forward to this. You better not let me down, you.
No, I ain't let you down. Don't worry about
Good
that.
lad.
Thank you very much for joining us. This has been the Paddock Podcast. We'll see you in a bit.